It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of having Becky Varone as our guest. Becky owns a company called Hudson Valley Bucket List. So I'll always say, building a network, building relationships just never gets old. Recently, you heard an interview from Judith, one of the founders of Legal Shred. Through Judith, we're just chatting away as we do. And she's like, oh, you ought to meet my friend Becky. So I was like, okay. So we did. Hence, Becky and I had this conversation. I know the Hudson Valley fairly well, and I was fascinated by the company that she has built. Let me give you a little bit of background. So in 2015, Becky left an industry of 15 years, having decided that it was time to transition. She was, after 20 years being together with her husband, they were pregnant with their first child, and she wanted to actually be 100% present and kind of shift the world, her world, in that process. She figured, oh, I always love to travel, and I'll just build like this company, Hudson Valley Bucket List, and take a few people over the weekend on tours of the Hudson Valley because it's what she would enjoy doing. Lo and behold, 5 years later or so, 6 years later, she tours thousands of people through this area. Becky, we have to hear how you created this transition and how you created a business and life that works for you.
Yeah, thank you, Ivy. Excited to be here. And creating the business was definitely a love of two things. It was a love of travel, and it was the love of being a mother. So my husband and I loved traveling. Before my daughter was born, I'd planned these trips that even for my husband, who never liked flying, enjoyed them and asked for them every year. And then in 2015, I became pregnant with my daughter. And it was something that took a lot of leaving an industry of 15 years that I was in. But I wanted that work-life balance. I wanted to be present with her. And I also felt like my time is more important to my daughter than, a company in a big way. So after kind of staying home with my daughter and letting wheels turn, I thought to myself, why don't we in the Hudson Valley have these wonderful private tours that I've taken around the world with my husband, just day trips, people that are local, that are from the area, that can give you that day. We always left those, trips with this great feeling, great friendships. So I wanted to recreate that in the Hudson Valley.
It's so true. And it's so interesting you say that because as you know, I see both my kids are doing, trips this summer and they have tours planned. And, I speak to one and they're like, oh, we're doing a day trip here with a guide that, we do this when we travel and we don't think of doing it when it's actually not. So for those of the big listeners out there who are not from the New York area, and we have many who are from all over the country, as well as a whole bunch from all over globally, the Hudson Valley is nestled about an hour and a half to 2 hours north of New York City. It's become very, very popular, I'd say definitely in the last couple of years with COVID, but even in the last 5 to 10 years in general, right?
Yes, it is the backyard of New York City, how I like to call it. It's their getaway.
So we wouldn't, there's people who want to get out of the city or want to do a day trip or a weekend trip. And as opposed to just, and if you think about it, getting out of any city, right? Whether it be LA or Chicago or Paris or, right? You could be anywhere like that day trip out of New York. Mm-hmm. And then to think about adding that guided component. So how did you start building this? Where did this come from? We have this concept And
Yeah.
it always sometimes is wondering, okay, so how do you go from concept to touring thousands of people in over 6 years, a year?
It's a crazy ride. And I, it started small, like I said, the idea, but something in me, especially working, all of my adult life, obviously, something just kept me driven of doing more. So I think the first thing was just getting connected with other people in the industry. So the tourism departments, I love New York, and all the county, Dutchess Tourism, Orange Tourism. So all the counties that I'll be working in. And
So
they
so
were,
you made those connections and started building those relationships.
yes, they were, so helpful to my business, which makes sense. And I think it was making those connections with people. One of a huge partnership, or someone that made a huge impact on my business was, I'll give the long short of it. So Judith Papo, the owner of Legal Shred, her business was doing like a community convention that would have a booth. And we were just talking, on our usual walk or something. And she said, I don't have anybody to, take care of that booth. So it'll probably be empty. And I said, I'm not doing anything this weekend. Let me fill in. I love you. I love your company. I love people. I filled
I'll
in.
help.
Yes.
Right? We pitch
Yes.
in, we help one another. We always have to remember to ask for help. And,
Yep.
so she shared a problem, you filled the need.
Yep. So at the convention, a few rows down, I see that Metro North, which is, the New York Rail, a connection from New York City out of Grand Central brings, people up back and forth for commuters and also for tourism. So I meet this beautiful woman, Donna Haynes, and she's the assistant director and promotional partnership with New York Metro North. And we just clicked. And that was the start to making my small business legitimate, because we kept a relationship. And she said to me, Becky, how would you like your tours to be a Metro North getaway? And this is something
that's going from a concept to speed of lightning.
Yes, it was the most, and still to this day, that has to be my favorite story of my business. And even though I'm so grateful for her, I don't always know if she realizes, so it went from there. It added to, my business. It was, my brand is very strong and trustworthy, and that just like added to it.
So as you started scaling, what have you seen? Is this like, do people come for the day and that's okay? I have so many questions, Becky.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start about, okay, so now all of a sudden you have this a lot, you can create an alliance with Metro North, which is a major railway getaway situation. So that's a great marketing component. Mm-hmm. Where else? And you said you go out to your tourism places in the local communities and start building relationships there. Where do you get to do from your first tour? Like, where does the idea come from to actually filling it with clients? Because sometimes, like I'll always say, when people say, well, I think I'm going to get started this, I was like, go get a client. Yeah. Go get a client, build a client list, right? Build that. How did that start building? Where did the marketing and sales come from?
Yeah, there was different levels of kind of chipping away. So I always tell people when they ask me, there's never one, answer to the amount of volume that we are doing now. But the start of it was just, getting people out there to some of our favorite tours and some of our favorite places. And, social media plays a part, but as weird as it is, it's not, the huge driver. So definitely just as a core, a website that is optimized, that is gonna target your people. And I think even though we hear this all the time, it was really important for me, coming from a marketing sales background, to target exactly who our guests are and introduce everything that is going to be appealing to them. But as a new business owner, sometimes we want to stray from that because we think, oh, well, if I only market to them and I need all this business, well, how am I going to get those other people? So I always, had to, tell myself and other business owners, you'll get those other people. We don't just host beautiful women on bachelorette celebrations. We also host, businesses that I've actually heard of, which is, mind blowing to me. We host gentlemen celebrating. We host 70th birthday parties. So your marketing doesn't say, you're only going to get those guests. It just makes it where it gets that ball rolling where, so we get a lot of our business from our website. We get a lot of our business from word of mouth, a lot of repeat guests.
Oh, really? Now,
yes.
That's not something that I would. So repeat guests. So if somebody comes for that bachelorette, they'll come back for what?
Yeah. So they'll come back as a guest as another bachelorette, or they'll have their company that they work for. Our guests are, I have to say, I mean, even our partners, the venues are like, you bring in some really, amazing guests. I'm like, I know, we love
substantial companies. And so what are some of the things that you find that people love to do when they're taking that time out? What is, I'm coming from my own place of just curiosity. What are some of the things people love to engage in?
Yeah. So a lot of our guests are women. So there's a lot of celebrations surrounding getting married. So we do these beautiful picnics that are becoming quite popular, but we've always included them in the day. So it's a beautiful picnic with delicious food, and we do flights of wine at wineries. So the day is really thought out. It's where women can, dress up in their sundresses and put their cute shoes on. And the only thing they have to worry about is enjoying the company. So we'll go to some great wineries in the Hudson Valley. The Hudson Valley this is going to be a shocker for a lot of people. It is the oldest winemaking region in the US. We have 100 years on California. So it is a surprise. We have the oldest winery in America in the Hudson Valley, and we also have the oldest vineyard in America. So a lot of history, a lot of great things that are being produced, not just wine, but that is one of our most popular tours. And we also have a lot of farms. So that's another element that guests love including. So the picnics, farms, wineries, farm stands, anything that's going to take you from this hustle and bustle of a metro area to just spending time with the simplicity of it.
And what are the corporations, the businesses? What are their events? What are they looking for?
Oh gosh, this is a great question, Ivy. So we've hosted some great companies. Off the top of my head, Google was one of those where I was like, how did you find us? And of course, they found us through Google.
Through Google.
Fantastic. So a lot of the company events, they want a real good glimpse into the Hudson Valley. They are usually out of the Metro New York, but then they have, offices throughout the world. So they want to show their people a great time, but they also want to, show them what it is. Even though there is an element of drinking, company events, they don't want, an over
get sloppy
to it.
Right. It can't get sloppy. There's tasting and then there's drinking.
Right. So we try to, balance that, but some really great highlights. One of the more popular, which is going to come as a surprise, and this can be done summer, fall, winter. We've done beautiful winter events. of an alpaca trek and visiting an alpaca farm and interacting with these animals, interacting with the farmer who is absolutely amazing and passionate in what she does. Talking to the group about the fibers that she produces for yarn, and making different things with it. And the alpacas are just, so fun. And so if we did a winter event with this particular farm up north, we would have them arrive bundled up, and we would have a beautiful fire pit with some fake furs and benches, and people can roast marshmallows while some people walk with their alpacas and get their selfies. It's fantastic. So that's one of the, so that's one of the most popular. Definitely wine tasting. Chocolatiers. We have a great list of chocolatiers. One in particular, Oliver Kita, and we will have them come to the winery and just show off their luxe chocolates. And this particular chocolatier probably has the best story, best personality, and the chocolates are to die for. So just bringing those great elements to an event.
So if I asked you, out of this, in this journey, what has actually surprised you?
Yeah, I think a big surprise, I don't know if it's a surprise for me, but it's a surprise, I think, for anybody who talks to me about what I do, is that they expect me to have clients that are almost like bridezillas or demanding, or, the stress of it. And I can't say that I've never had the stress of a client, but the amount of people that we host, I can count on one hand guests that were more difficult. We have the most amazing guests, and our venues that we visit say the same thing. They are genuinely great people with huge successes of their own, and they treat myself, our team, the venues with, it's just amazing. So that to me, and the venues notice this, they're like, how do you get these guests? What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know.
Because you think about hospitality, and sometimes hospitality, it can be very, we have the illusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the impression that hospitality is fraught with, difficult people,
Mm-hmm.
versus, oh my goodness, I have the most delightful. I remember when we first spoke, you're like, I said, well, I was asking you something like, and you just went on and gushed about how wonderful your clients are.
Yeah.
And I agree, and I get it. And I remember making a decision as I transitioned from printing, and saying, I will only work with people I adore.
Yes.
My clients are people I adore, not just but truly, like, my heart opens up for them. I see them, email me, ping me, this, that, and the other thing. I smile before I even read anything.
Yes.
And that's what, we connected about. And you're like, yeah, after 15 years in the business world, it was such a transition.
Yes. Spot on, Ivy. I am grateful every day. Then I'm able to do something I love, work with people that are amazing, and actually, pay myself a salary. Let's be totally honest, right?
Let's call a spade a spade.
That's
it. And you're making, you're providing for your family. You didn't, one thing I respected when we originally spoke is you made a decision to prioritize being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you stayed open to doing that, and you didn't have to stop. You allowed your creativity to expand, and created a business that gives you a solid, wonderful revenue stream, and helps others create a revenue stream.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out, because that is, exactly, what it is. But yes, super grateful for being able to do that,
So if you could have one tip to share forward about somebody who's thinking about the difficult decisions, and we don't always talk about this on Her Success Story, but thinking about the difficult decisions, what do I want to do next? Should I open a business? Should I be a mom? Should I be a stay-at-home mom? Should I do this? Should I do that? What's right? How, any thoughts or tips for them?
Yeah. So to bring it into more focus of whenever I started the company, I had a huge challenge, which every business owner, man or woman, is going to go through. And that is the feedback from people that are closest to you. And one of the challenges looking back for me was, I am happily married. I love my husband, but he is very much admitting that at the beginning, he was like, "You're crazy. Go get a job. What are you doing? You crazy." Not because I think he didn't believe in me. I think just he was, a lot of people will give you advice based off their own fear. My husband, my mother was like, why don't you just stay home with Aria? What are you doing? My accountant at the end, when I think I was like profitable by like $5 the first year, he said, "Becky, this could be a hobby. Just keep that in mind." So my biggest advice would be, surround yourself with people you love, but that doesn't mean you have to take their advice or their fears and make it into your own. I have unintentionally changed every single one of their minds. My accountant, who doesn't care for bachelorette or wine tastings, loves my business because he takes care of me every year and he sees the back end of my business. My husband he always says he's my first employee. He is my partner. He can't see me doing anything different. And my mother is a huge supporter also. So biggest advice, you have to follow your gut, but you also have to put the work in and those stepping stones in order to grow it. And then my second biggest thing is, and I hope my clients are able to listen to this because they know this is my response. Don't undervalue your service. You have to charge appropriately. You are providing something and you're giving your business longevity by being fair. When I have clients say, "Becky, I don't know, is there anything you can do with the pricing?" And I say, "Listen, the pricing is what it is." But I have never had a client turn around and say, "I was charged too much." So trust me on this one. So those two things, takeaway, is a necessity for being in business.
I love that. I think those two takeaways are huge and significant. And I have said to many, many people over the years, we love our spouses. Our spouses love us, our partners, our support, our families. They want what's best for us. Yet, so because they love us, and this is how I catch this, because they love us, they want us safe. Okay. Being a business owner is one of the riskiest, most personal self-development things you could ever do for yourself. Okay. And it's committing to living in an uncomfortable zone at times. The uncomfortable is risky, is scary. Why would somebody we love want us uncomfortable? Their goal is to keep us safe and secure. So it's not that they don't support us, but they're trying to take care of us or protect us from risk. Where stepping into starting a business, owning a business, scaling a business is, you cannot be risk adverse.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense to keep your loved ones close to your heart and keep a support team with you to step into that areas of uncomfortable. And
Yes.
you're right. We must all always step into our value and know
Mhm.
and our worth and not be afraid of it,
Yeah.
not being afraid to ask for it and own it.
Yes. I love that, Ivy. It is 100% how I feel about that.
So,
Yeah.
Becky, how can our listeners follow you, reach out to you, connect with you?
Yeah. So our website is real simple, www.hvbucketlist.com. Our handles on social media, Instagram, HV Bucket List, and Facebook, same, HV Bucket List. We are currently running those. We might have a little spin-off of a picnic brand because that has,
Oh, some new
yes,
innovation coming our way. So stay tuned.
yes, huge, kind of just taking the most popular, beautiful thing, and making it its own. So
Love it.
that should be coming soon, but definitely, follow us on social media. We have some fun, beautiful things posted that are from actual tours or days of the Hudson Valley. So
Fabulous. Well, Becky, thank you for joining me here today.
yes, Ivy, thank you so much for having me on.
And listeners, take a moment and say, gee, I tuned in. What did I learn? What did I take away? What's my biggest aha? Feel free to put it in the comments below. And most importantly, create your action for yourself from that takeaway and aha. If this episode resonated with you, share it forward, and we will see you next week with more fabulous episodes of Her Success Story.